it's solving problems with technology. I just happen to have a focus on AI and automation at the moment, but really it's about solving problems.
Yeah.
Because I get brought into boardrooms all the time at the moment, and I'm told, okay, we need, by the next quarterly board meeting, we're going to have to report that we've done something in AI. And I'm like, okay, what do you want to do? And they're like, don't know. People don't adopt new technology because it's clever. Why do they adopt it? They adopt it because they know what it does for them. It makes their lives easier.
Rebecca Keenan, Solutions Director of Expleo, thank you very much for joining us on the podcast today.
Thank you for having me.
So we were going to be talking a little bit about intelligent automation and insights and the world of AI coming together. Well, before we do that, tell us a little about your journey to now and the work that you do.
Yeah, for sure. I graduated 10 years ago. Now time flies, from Trinity College with a degree in computer science and business. That's kind of my educational background. And that's probably where that mix of the tech and the people and the business side of the house that's when I became interested in it. So when I joined Expleo, I actually joined their grad program coming up to 10 years ago now. And originally started as a BA, short-lived career, moved into technology that was called robotic process automation. So it was very high tech 10 years ago. I don't think it's seen quite the same today, but started an RPA team in Expleo at the time. They didn't have one. I was able to grow it to a global team. And really it was just one step after the other that we took, because there's lots of adjacent technology to RPA. So we looked to OCR, we brought in process specialists because we saw that was really important to scaling automation. We brought in chatbots, and then ultimately we led to where everyone is today, which is talking about AI. So it's been really a kind of a natural progression to where I am today and what I help our clients with. And ultimately, it's solving problems with technology. I just happen to have a focus on AI and automation at the moment, but really it's about solving problems.
Yeah, I think having that foundation from a technical perspective, but then a genuine interest from a business domain perspective to want to actually solve problems and generate value, having that inherited as a golden thread is a really, really good competitive advantage to do that.
Yeah.
And although RPA is kind of gone out of the limelight. It was when I think back a few years ago, so many companies were doing it well. There's still some really, really relevant use cases. And then you add in OCR and chatbots to them, you can save a significant amount of time and money. It becomes so much more efficient.
I think that's a really interesting point, because I get brought into boardrooms all the time at the moment, and I'm told, okay, we need, by the next quarterly board meeting, we're going to have to report that we've done something in AI. And I'm like, okay, what do you want to do? And they're like, don't know. And I'm like, have you done an automation program yet? No. Have you heard of RPA? We haven't done that yet. So I think there's just like so much good stuff we can do prior to AI. I think RPA, we still have clients today, and I still work with companies where we're building their first robot. So that's still happening. And I think it's a really good foundation builder for getting your people, getting your process ready while you're figuring out all these big questions that need to happen with AI. Because again, if we look at RPA or automation or, simple technology, the checks and balances we need to put in, the different kind of cyber risks we need to look at, the different regs we need to look at, they're not as difficult as what we're trying to figure out with AI at the moment. So I often say to clients, while we're figuring out this bigger stuff, there's still things that we can be implementing that bring business pretty immediately benefits to your business. So I think it's a mix that lots of companies need. And I think people fall down when they get kind of maybe bought into this hype, and it's rightful hype that we're seeing around AI, but it's not the only thing. And if you just too laser focus on that, I think it can trip people up.
Yeah, I also think it's a good conversation where you say crawl, walk, run, to say, okay, let's get our data fit for purpose.
Yeah.
And we're also, let's look at the workflow that we want to either automate and add some kind of intelligence around, and then look at the other different types of workflows so you can collectively go on that journey. So it's taking you on that steps. And people feel very, very good then knowing about the golden thread of what the possible is there.
Yeah.
But like every LinkedIn demo, they want to throw machine learning at us or AI at us. And that's okay for smaller POCs. But when you hit the world of scale, that's where the rubber hits the road, and that's where you take it on a really, really interesting journey.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about some of the work that you're doing in the specific industries, or any particular use cases that come to mind that you found particularly helpful.
Yeah, it's interesting. I get asked a lot, where should we start? And I don't think there's a correct universal answer for that, which adds to the fun and probably the difficulty of it. But, if I look across maybe some common themes that are emerging to where we're deploying AI and automation, if I look at customer service and customer facing processes, we're seeing a lot of LLM powered chatbots, that can help with a customer or an employee problem before having to go to a human agent, perhaps. So I think that's probably an easier step into the world of AI that we're seeing a lot, that kind of more generative type of AI.
Yeah.
We're also seeing things like a lot of call centers, they do a lot of quality checks, whether it be for customer satisfaction or regulatory compliance. And, they have manual teams listening back to calls and literally going through a tick list to make sure that certain questions were asked and things like that. We can now turn those calls into text transcripts, run it through a model, and the checks can all be done automatically. So we can only have to flag the ones that maybe were an issue. So that's a really interesting project that we're currently working on. And I see that being very reusable across lots of different call centers. We're seeing still a lot of, I say OCR. OCR is a very difficult tech. It's been around a long time, but it's still, clever enough old tech. And, document processing, whether that be in your finance team with invoicing. We're seeing an interesting take now where, if you've agents or field workers, they can take pictures of things. It can be, instead of having to get sent back to head office and maybe manually be checked, we can do that with image classification technology. And again, we can just get things done quicker, more efficient. Maybe an agent in the field might need a part. The technology can see what that part is. If we go further again, maybe if they don't have it, we can get it sent to them really cleverly. Maybe there's another agent in the field that's close to them. We can drop things off. It's really about just getting more clever in what we're doing. And I guess the third one that I see a lot is around that predictive space. So how can we take all this data that we have and start making some clever decisions? So we have some really interesting case studies. I guess if we look at supply chain, I'm seeing it really prevalent there. So, if we have a machine, whether it be in a factory or an airplane flying around the world, if we can start to predict when maintenance is going to happen before it breaks down, that means we have more upkeep time. If we go further again, if we know that a certain part of a machine is going to need to be replaced, we can check if there's stock available. We can then, if there's not stock available, let's get it ordered, let's get it sent in. Yeah. So again, it's just about efficiency. It's about really avoiding downtime, I think, when we look at that. And again, they're a broad range of very helicopter view examples, but I think that goes to the point of AI is so pervasive. It's everywhere. It can be everywhere. So that's back again to the point of you really need to hone in on what do you want it to do for your organization.
Yeah. It also, if you think about if you look at the kind of people, process, product, you're trying to supercharge your people to have relevant use cases that they can actually use the tools. But then on the process, in that example, even with the field engineers, you're following them to see, well, what do they actually do every day?
Yeah.
What is a collision point where they get a bit of friction where we can actually save them 5, 10, 15 minutes?
Yeah.
Well, let's document that process. Let's see some of these different use cases and let's try to arm those people to be a little bit more efficient. And that could be a 20-minute cost brought down to 12 minutes. Because sometimes people think about when they're fixing machines, let's say in the Beacon Hospital or image devices, it takes quite a bit of time for that field engineer to get their tools, walk down, go into the site. If they forget something or something's not there,
they don't have a part they need.
They don't have a part. Yeah. They have to go all the way back, a new visit again. It could have taken them between going from Dundalk out to Sandyford. It could take them 90 minutes to get there, rush hour traffic. Yeah. So you're trying to prevent all that to have more of an optimized way of work. And if you scale that one journey across maybe 100 field engineers over a year, that is substantial savings. Yeah. Not to mention the self-esteem boost that person actually has being able to do their job more effectively as well to improve that. So understanding the process, understanding the people work that they do, and then trying to remove that friction to give that better customer experience. So when you think about it on scale, so you're talking about predictive maintenance and kind of getting ahead of it when it breaks down or being kind of more optimized for how those different machines go. Is there any companies that come to mind or use case that come to mind where companies have kind of had that kind of wider perspective and then been able to actually kind of make better informed decisions for their planning for the next year, 2 years, 3 years, based on that key intel?
Yeah, I think that's, I guess the dream when you think of what can more intelligence bring to the organization. It's, can we make real-time decisions with real-time data that's continuously updating? If I look across, even if I look across the island here of Ireland, I think people are still grappling with that scale element. If we're being really honest, I think, you look at the Microsofts and the bigger companies that have the bigger budgets, and they're definitely further ahead than maybe people that have smaller teams and they don't have as much time. And I think that leadership element to it, and leaders being, confident enough in how their own ability to understand AI, there's probably still a little bit of a gap there. So there's definitely, I think, if I look at some of the companies that we work with or that I know people in who are making strides, healthcare, we're seeing, I think, a lot of strides, which is great, for the broader society. So that's fantastic. But I would say there's still work to be done. If I think I would look at some of the investment banks, some of the pillar retail banks, there's still a lot of reg that needs to be thought through and discussed to before we really get confident in, I would say, scale deployment.
It blows my mind that only 5% of our listeners actually subscribe to the podcast. We've got one favour to ask. Please, can you subscribe to the podcast? If you like our content, you subscribing will make a huge difference to the guests that we can get on the show, and also be a voice for AI applied across Ireland, but doing it the right way. Now back to the show. Tell us a little bit about Business Transformation Index and some of the insights you've had. I think it's in its 6th year now. Yeah. Has there been any kind of trends you've seen in the last year or so, or any kind of thoughts that you think would be good to share?
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, so that Business Transformation Index, Expleo commission that survey every year. And it's interesting. 6 years ago, there was no mention of AI. Today, it's all AI. So that's interesting. I think 6 years ago, it was more, you were talking about automation, hyper automation, RPA, and we're seeing that shift now. We've probably this year, what was interesting, we saw a slowdown in transformation budgets. They were getting smaller. I don't think ambition was disappearing per se. I think leadership teams and C-suites were actually saying, okay, we need to be more effective in what we're doing and how we're spending. So that was a really interesting take that I got, because it's not about, like I said, that lack of ambition, but it's about facing reality in a world that is somewhat chaotic, not just from a, your own organization's standpoint, but, we all open the news every day and it's a surprise what you're going to see. So I think that was a really interesting point that came out of it. It's that while it would appear things are slowing down, I think it's maybe more of a shift in thinking and how people are going about transformation. Yeah, because when you have hesitancy or pause, it's almost like the project is dead, but they don't actually say those words, and it's you've almost got another excuse. And even we're sitting here, you could see how companies might say, "Well, let's make a decision after summer." Yeah, and then for so many people who are ready to go on the journey, they've done all their different parts. For it to get pushed back 6 or 8 weeks, you really feel like you're breaking momentum, and you want them to actually say, well, now is the time to go into transformation. Now is the time to actually start to reimagine some of those processes, because your customers want that. Yeah. And it's not just your strategy, it's actually your customer's strategy too, because they want to have that frictionless experience and be able to go on a better journey. That's interesting, because I think sometimes I'll speak to people and they'll say, we're busy enough as it is. We're pushing it out 12 months. And I'm like, oh, I don't know if we can do that. Just in terms of even staying competitive in a market where other people are using AI. And I think as well, people I don't know if they get lost in all of the chaos that comes with everything that is AI at the moment. But, to start an AI capability, and I think you should look at it as a capability in your organization, not a project. I think that's a really good learning that we've seen across the clients that I work with. But, it doesn't mean that, if we say go on an AI program, that, we're going to be handling customer sensitive data by, in 6 weeks time, and we're going to making all these decisions. Maybe it's starting an education program in your organization, that's starting your capability. So again, there's lots of different things that you can be doing in the background to start prepping your business. That's, I think, better than just saying, we'll do it in 12 months and we're busy enough as it is. Yeah. And you're having like a golden thread of milestones to achieve. So one of those could be a literacy program. It could be having an AI policy in place. It could be having an executive workshop. So you're earning the right to get closer to there. And ironically enough, that would be a better place than say, okay, it starts today. Yeah.
What are some of the 2 or 3 relevant use cases that you would say of not to do? So things that you've kind of learned, the road less stupid. What advice would you offer to people not to do if they were to embark on this new journey?
I don't know if it's a not to do, but the advice that I give everyone pretty consistently is look at the tech stack you have. So lots of organizations, probably most that we work with and that we know, they have these huge technology stacks and there's so many different tools and there's lots going on. So I often say, okay, well, let's look at what you have, because quite often, it'll be whether it's some of the RPA tools, UiPath, Automation Anywhere, there's Microsoft, there's ServiceNow, there's all of these technology stacks that you have in your business already. And guess what they've done? They've put hundreds of millions into research to make those tools AI enabled. So it makes perfect sense in my head to say, okay, is there stuff that we can start switching on? Because you have this tool in place already. We have the licensing agreement in place. Your people are used to it. It's not like it's brand new. Is there stuff we can start switching on? So I don't know if I guess that's not a use case not to do, but I think it's looking at it a different way to say, if we need a path to AI, and I get that, lots of leaders are under pressure at the moment because they're having to report what they're doing in AI. Okay, so let's take a clever approach to this. And I've seen that work really well. I would say most of the clients that, we're looking at AI now, and we've moved from, we want to do it to we're now in production or heading to production.
So that kind of build versus buy decision, and actually being really conscious around thinking, why are you going to reinvent the wheel when you've got something that you can stand on and show us
100%.
with giants? And that actually takes the pressure off, and then you can scale it. You can
supplement it with your own stuff if you want to.
And then you've got relevant use cases. So getting that right, build versus buy, getting that right. Any other areas that you see companies falling down, it wouldn't be cool to their project list or doing something that kind of takes them away from their kind of key KPIs of a business?
I think realistically, if you haven't got your governance in place, you should stay away from any data or privacy sets or data sets that might enact the EU AI Act or any other regs that you can avoid. So I would say very much when you're creating your pipeline of use cases, which needs to be strong, that's one of the key elements to being able to scale an AI program. If you haven't done the foundational work to get your regulation in order, to make sure you understand what it is, what you can, what you can't do, where's your data coming from, who has access to it. If all those foundation steps aren't done, I would steer clear of maybe your customer data, your customer facing data. That's a broad set because that's different for every organization. But I think picking the right use case is key. And if you haven't done the groundwork to say, how are we going to make sure that this is safe, transparent, ethical, all those good things, you should stay away from anything that even if you think it's going to get you in trouble, it probably will. So stay away from it until you've really got those foundations in place.
That's good advice. And for yourself or your team, how are you using AI to be a little bit more productive every day?
Yeah, well, we have Copilot, so we're rolling out Copilot at the moment. It's an interesting one. I use it as much as I can. It's probably one of those, productivity issues where I haven't probably had the time to learn how to use it properly. So I don't know if I am. I'm a big user of ChatGPT. It's in my pocket every day. I probably ask it more questions than anyone else at the moment. My team as well, they're using Copilot for, transcripts of meetings, notes, following up with people, summarizing documents, and reading documents now. I would say that's what we're seeing most people using at the moment. Past that, in terms of actual delivery, we're seeing technology where, for example, the BAs on our team, they have technology now where they can record a process flow and a map gets popped out instead of having to build a map. It's a very, I guess, basic might be the wrong word example, but when I started my short-lived career as a BA 10 years ago, you were very much drawing out the boxes and the flows. You can now record it. It can pop out a ready to go map. You're just filling in the blanks. So I think we're going to see more of that start to come out once organizations figure out how to start deploying it. And then the commercial models, like everything, things will get cheaper. They'll become easier to use. Yeah.
It's funny because once you start to augment your work experience by utilizing the tools and you start to see the 5 minutes saved here, 20 minutes saved there, or the opportunity to just kind of make things look more polished, there's kind of no going back.
Yeah, there is that, because I know I get asked a lot about, return on investment on these AI investments. And particularly if you're in front of a CFO, it's like, well, where's the return on investment? And there is that conversation that has to be had where some of this will just be like how we have Word or Excel to work and we have an email address, there's going to be certain things I think that would just need to be baked into the employee experience.
Yeah. And I always say back to the CFO or CEO that's asking those questions is the only way you're going to truly understand how this is going to impact is if you understand how long it takes you to do certain tasks at the moment, to measure the time it takes, and then comparing that if you're using AI to augment this, what does that take? And what if you're using AI to actually replace it?
Yeah.
And is it better than the way it was originally?
Yeah.
Is the cost, what's the cost difference? And then if you upskilled, and then you can actually take a proper data-centric view to say, okay, it is better for these different reasons rather than show me. Show me now. It's like, well, it's not as clear and clean as show me now.
And it's not even always just timing as well. It's like if you integrate AI into a workflow and the results are better, even if it takes maybe a bit longer, because we see that sometimes you integrate tech and it might add a couple of minutes here or there, but your output is so much better. Your people are happier. There's a lot to be said for that as well.
But even say the customer service agents that you're working with, let's say it's like high churn, particularly at that sector. Well, then we got a newbie that's come on board, but they've got access to knowledge documents that make it so much easier for them to retrieve information, to answer questions on the fly, to find out about grievance policies, holidays, all that kind of stuff, where a person doesn't actually have to do that.
Yeah.
Showing that value too. So it's probably how you clearly articulate it. And then also,
I think it's storytelling.
Yeah, it's storytelling.
Going back to
it is. Data visualization is storytelling, but also explaining to people, if you want to find holes in this technology, you won't have very far to go. You will find holes in it, but explain to the people, this is the journey you can go on, and here's some realistic use cases you can start to apply.
I think that's really important too, because I often say, people don't adopt new technology because it's clever. Why do they adopt it? They adopt it because they know what it does for them. It makes their lives easier. So being able to explain that is just so key, particularly as we start moving into this new era where things are going to change. I think jobs will change. Some will go, some will come. But there will be change for all of us. I think that will be universal. So again, having that element of bringing them on that journey, making sure they understand it, having them be acceptive of it. I think that storytelling element makes a big difference. Yeah,
and I personally believe when I'm working with an organization, CEO down, unless they do the workshops with us, they won't understand how transformative it is versus actually somebody reporting into them and saying this has happened. Until they're in the sandbox, playing in the sand of challenges, pro, benefits, this is good, this is not so good.
I think AI leadership is definitely not just signing off a budget today. It's like you got to get involved.
And until you get involved, actually properly get involved, get off the hamster wheel, and actually you truly get perspective as well. Rebecca Keenan, Solutions Director, Expleo, thank you very much for joining us on the AI Ireland podcast today.
Thank you.
At AI Ireland, we're helping over 1 million people become literate using artificial intelligence. And we do this in a variety of different way. The easiest way is our AI literacy program, where we do a 60 to 90 minute program via virtual Zoom or Microsoft Teams, where we teach the rules of the road of AI, from basic business concepts to ethical and resourceful decisions on how you actually use AI every day. This is our literacy foundation. The second way we use AI training is within our workshops. These are either virtual or in-person workshops where executive leaders come and use some of the AI tools that we make available for them, that they can actually start to take their own documents and reimagine savings of time and energy, but taking away friction from the work that they do each day. Later on, we actually empower different departments, HR, finance, sales, marketing, operations, and start to utilize AI across relevant use cases to upskill their different types of departments. If you're interested and ready to go on your AI journey, we'll be able to showcase over 700 applications of applied AI about how you can actually stop reinventing the wheel and start using AI for your organization today. If you want to start out and find out a little bit about the golden thread of activities that we've got to allow you to start to utilize AI straight away, please feel free to reach out to us and we'll give you a good comprehensive overview about the arts of the possible, minus the hype, purely applied. See you then.